Welcome to a special edition of Wrestling Talk. Yes, this is really Wrestling Talk. I'm doing it again, and I only do it these days when I have very unique and special guests, and Sheldon Goldberg is no exception. Sheldon is the promoter for 20 years with NECW. He is the author of a brand new novel, his first novel, The Last Fall, a Hall of Famer in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. You have a theater background. You're a promoter, as I said, with NECW, and the founder, of course. So this book really encapsulates your history, in my view, because through the eyes and ears of the characters that you write about, you are a wrestler, you are a promoter, you are a publicist, you got inside the heads of all these people. And I breezed through the book. I plowed through it. I loved it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My association with wrestling has always been kind of on the peripheral. But people tell me otherwise, which is nice of them. But I know enough to recognize authenticity when I see it, and it's definitely in The Last Fall. So, Sheldon, what led you to write this novel, and why a novel? Why did you not write an autobiographic story of your journey through professional wrestling?
Well, the answer to the latter part of that is I felt I had more stuff to do. I had more things on my agenda that I wanted to accomplish. I wasn't sure whether I would be able to accomplish them, but uh, uh, I just decided that a novel was something that I'd always wanted to try. I wasn't sure I could even pull that off, but a little bit of a backstory. 14 months ago, I was in a hospital bed in Mass General. I was on my way back to Boston from Las Vegas. I went out there for a Cauliflower Alley Club reunion. And on the flight home, my kidneys failed. And I spent about a month in the hospital. And I had to go on dialysis, which I'm still on dialysis. I wasn't sure what my future was going to be or if I even had a future. So I went back to my regular job for about 6 months. I had decided when I was in the hospital that I was going to come up with some sort of an end date and retire and then devote myself to the projects and the things that I really wanted to do. And, I've wanted to get back to promoting live events, but all the pieces hadn't fallen into place. So it's a much different scene now than it was when I was promoting. When I started 20 years ago and when I ended, um, I should say 23 years ago, and when I ended about, a few years, just like 3 or 4 years ago, the scene's totally different. And it required something other than what I was going to be able to bring to it just out of my back pocket. So, I thought about other creative projects. I've got two. This one, the Last Fall, and another project that's going to be coming out sometime early in the new year called New England Championship Wrestling: The Lost Matches Live, which is going to be a program of matches that have been never been released or not available on YouTube or whatever. And we're going to show those in a movie theater with a live Q&A afterwards. So that's the Lost Matches Live. That's coming in the new year. And as I say, a novel was something I always wanted to attempt. And I had the time to do it since I'd retired from my regular job, and decided to take a stab at it. And what you've got is what came out. So, I always wanted to do something that portrayed the business in a realistic way without it being, based on well, Last Fall is in part based on real things that happened at different times and real people in some cases, but it's a fiction book. So somebody may have been inspired by somebody, but it's the person and the character in the book are totally different people. So um, yeah, I wanted to take a stab at it. It came together incredibly quickly. The first draft of the book came together in 3 weeks, and it took about another 4 weeks or so before I got, you know, all the edits done and all the polishing and whatnot. And 7, 8 weeks it was what it took from beginning to end to get a finished publication. So I'm very proud of it, and I'm thrilled that the book has received the warm reception that it's been getting. So uh, I am a little bit taken aback by it, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought people would like it, but it's gotten so many superlatives from so many people that it's kind of taken me aback in a good way.
Well, I think that's natural because you're well known in the world of professional wrestling as wrestling's historian, and people know you and trust you uh, for authenticity, just like you say you tried to instill in the book, and you succeeded. So I want to talk about the time period that you write in, from the 70s to the late 90s. And we see the parallel in the real world, how the territories dried up, and how these two behemoths, WWE or WWF at that time and WCW,
Mm-hmm.
conquered everybody, and WWF came out on top. Obviously, we know WWE as we know it. And you parallel this with different companies and with the same time period. What I like what
Mm-hmm.
you did was you sprinkled some names like George the Animal Steel in there, Wrestling in the Independence, and other people that we know. And that's one of the authentic things that makes you feel that it is real. The main character, Pacheco, is from Delaware. Now, did you deliberately stay away from New England so that it wouldn't be so close?
Partly. The other part is that I just, uh, where would a kid like that come from? Where would he grow
Mhm.
up, and what would be his background? And he had a troubled background,
Mhm.
um, and I just sort of played around with it in my head, and that's what I came up with.
So I was thinking of a specific wrestler actually that I was introduced to at your show, Damian Wayne, who just retired from
Hmm. Hmm.
professional wrestling. It made me think of him right away because he's from
Hmm.
that area, close to that area, right? In the
Yeah, I think he's from. Well, he's in Tennessee now. I
okay.
think he was from Virginia before then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Virginia. That's what I remember. That's what I
Right, right,
remember.
right.
Quite a
Yeah.
standout.
Yep,
Um,
yep. Great guy.
so a lot of things happen in the book, and I don't want to give anything away. That's why I
Right.
said at the outset it's very tricky to do this. Let's talk about Sailor Sullivan. Now, Sailor Sullivan
Hmm.
is a lot of Walter Kowalski in him, a lot of wisdom. The stairs, going up the stairs into the wrestling school.
Hmm.
Am
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
correct in that assessment?
Sort of.
Yeah.
He's of the same ilk and roughly the same time period.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based on Kowalski specifically, but
Right.
it could be any number of people from that time period.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you have these fictional wrestling organizations, and one of them seems like WCW, one of them seems like WWE,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
they're not. But nevertheless, you captured the rivalry and what they did, and I also like what you did when with the loyalty aspect. How Pacheco was very loyal to Sailor Sullivan,
Right.
and he doesn't waver from that. And there's certain people in there that don't waver with that. Let's talk
Hmm.
about another character that was very interesting.
That's a very common thing in wrestling,
Yeah,
is to be loyal to the people who train you, sometimes to a very extreme degree.
that's interesting because there's
Mm.
just as many that you and I both know who are the opposite of that. The photographer, Ralphie,
Yeah, Ralphie
Ralph,
Ginsburg.
Ralphie Ginsburg. So tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about Ralphie and how that parallels in real life. His relationship with all the independent promoters, and they all liked him, and
right,
but he was kind of
right.
naive and everything.
Right. Well, back in the 70s, there were a number of wrestling magazines,
Hmm.
and I wanted to take somebody who would have been in a position to be close to promoters without being a promoter, without being, on that
Yeah,
level. And knowing what I know about pro wrestling in the magazines and so forth, that kind of a character would make sense, as he'd be in different areas, and
yeah,
getting to know the different promoters and the top stars in different areas, and he would have an access to
yeah,
people in the industry that other people may not have, and would have been a source of information for other promoters. So the in the context of the novel, it made sense to have a character like that who had that kind of access and that kind of proximity, and to kind of develop the way he developed. He's not really based on anyone specific. He's not based on
yeah,
Bill Apter or George Napolitano or
yeah,
anything like that. Where he may have some of the qualities, there are other qualities
yeah,
that he does not have. So,
yeah. Those guys are much more sophisticated than Ralphie.
right, exactly.
Some of the names that you picked for the wrestlers' ring names, that must have been a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, that and some of like the angles that are portrayed and things like that, ribs
Yeah.
and so forth. Yeah, that was a fun part to do.
So let's talk about ribs. What was in real life? What was the worst rib that you ever saw?
Wow. Huh. I didn't really see that many, other than a guy getting his shoes taped to the
Yeah.
ceiling or stuff like that. That's pretty mild in comparison to what's portrayed in the book. But I had heard stories about, pretty severe ribs that were portrayed on different people.
Mm-hmm.
They're
What?
part of the business, you know.
Yeah.
At least they used to be.
Right. Well, thankfully, I think that that's sort of changing with all the Me Too
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Exactly,
Especially with
exactly.
the
It's a
women.
different world now. Yeah.
It is. In stand-up comedy, that might be a problem, but I think in wrestling, it's an improvement.
There you go.
You know.
Yep.
Um, so the big guys, the big promoters in this, Pac McDougal,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
and now, talk about Pac McDougal for a minute, and
Uh-huh.
how he related to the other characters and what he was
Well,
doing.
he was an old time, old school promoter. He was in the book. He's the most powerful promoter in the country.
Hmm.
Um, he runs the highest grossing wrestling office in the United States, and he's an old school, magnanimous guy. Was never a wrestler himself, and he's kind of in some ways he's kind of a Don Corleone figure, in some ways not. But he typifies some of the old time promoters.
Okay, so the last fall, can I mention what the last fall is?
Sure.
So the last fall is a territory that's so out in the boondocks that everybody assumes that their inhabitants maybe are toothless, and it's well not well run, and nobody would want to see those people. But in the book, they're surprisingly organized and skilled,
Mm-hmm.
and that surprised me. Um, is there a parallel in real life for this?
No,
No.
I kind of, that was something that I sort of like dreamed up. If there was a territory in that part of the country, in uh, Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas, what would it be like?
Mm-hmm.
Those are remote areas as compared to other areas of the country, like the East Coast or the Southwest or the Southeast or whatever. And what would it be like? And I remember when I started coming around independent wrestling, there was this thing about telemarketed shows,
Mm-hmm.
which were basically shows that were purchased from a promoter or a promotion by a professional fundraiser. And so, I thought about that. So what if in those kinds of remote areas where entertainment, there wasn't a lot of live entertainment, what if they made a promoter was savvy enough to make that the basis of the territory?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason that it's called the last fall is because the promoter uh, hired a lot of guys who were past their prime.
Mm-hmm.
And in the industry, this territory called Great Western Wrestling is
Mm-hmm.
called the last fall because it's where these old guys who nobody wants anymore go to have their last full-time run in the wrestling business.
Right.
So that's why it's called the last fall. That's where the title comes from.
Right. That's good. I was trying to get that out of you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how
Yeah,
much to say and how much not to say when we talk about
it's all right.
novels. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I would hate to
yeah.
spoil somebody reading it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
Lonnie LaRue, who sounds like a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting person to know.
Right.
Was she modeled after is she a composite of a lot of women that you've known?
A composite of a lot of women. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
I thought I'd throw a few curveballs in there of
mhm.
history.
Okay.
The history that I lay out is not exactly parallel
Of
to the history
course.
that we know.
Yeah.
Um, for example, the two big promotions are really fairly equal to each other. They're
Yes.
not one really doesn't dominate the other.
I
It's almost
noticed
like
that.
I'm rebooking the wrestling business from
That-
from 71 to 99.
That's
And
right.
that's kind of fun too, to throw little things that I wish were the case. And one of the things that I wish was the case is that women in the big companies would be more prominent. And in our story, Lonnie LaRue is the biggest star in wrestling
Yes.
in the 90s, and that is something that wouldn't have happened in
Right.
real life in the 1990s. So
Today it could happen, but not
today
then.
could happen. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So in real life, I want to mention that the NECW, your promotion, is different
Mm-hmm.
from all the other independent promotions that I've seen, in that you let the local people or the non WWE originated characters
Mm-hmm.
are not in it. You build your own stars like a territory,
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
and I like that a lot. And I forget what this is. You'll know the name. You had it up in Beverly, and it was like this tournament, and that's where I saw
The Iron Eight.
the Iron Eight.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous. That's one of the best cards I've ever seen in
Thank you.
any federation. Um,
Thank you so much.
any plans on doing anything like that when you come back?
I don't know. I'm 67 now,
Yeah.
so I've got more years in the rearview mirror than I have in the windshield. So I don't know.
Well, don't say that because I'm 67 too.
Yeah. Well, it's a young man. Promoting is a young man's game,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't mind mentoring people who want to carry the torch.
Yeah.
But as far as me doing the yeoman's work myself, I can tell you that in the period that I promoted, I just did so much stuff and had a regular job and a life on top of it. And it
Yeah.
was difficult. It was very difficult. And I don't think people understand, how much I sacrificed and how much I put into it in just in terms of personal commitment and energy. And uh, I didn't want to. I don't want to make my exit before I accomplish all the things that I want to accomplish. And so I don't know if running live shows again
Hmm.
is going to be in the cards. I think this show that we're going to be doing in the new year, the Lost Matches Live, is kind of a unique thing.
Hmm.
I don't know of anybody that did it. You put their matches up in a movie theater, and lost matches up in a movie theater with a live Q&A. I don't think anybody's ever done that. So I thought that would be a kind of a cool thing to do, to revisit the legacy of New England Championship Wrestling, and it does have a legacy. It does have an important legacy, in my opinion. So, we did a lot of cool things. We had a lot of great talent that came through our doors before they became famous. Um, I like to think that we were the cutting edge independent promotion when we were in our heyday. And
Definitely so.
I just thought that a chance to revisit that a little bit, and we have a whole bunch of stuff that is not out there on YouTube to be seen by people easily. So to take some of that footage and purpose it that way, I thought was a good idea, and a great way to pay tribute to the people that are going to be in those matches that you're going to see.
That's great. That's and do you know what theater we've lost our showcase cinema here in Revere?
Yeah, I've had some conversations with the Coolidge Corner Theater.
Oh.
That's one. I mean, it may be in multiple places. There's a Black Box Theater up in Beverly
Hmm.
that we might do something at. There could be a multiple number of locations on different nights. So,
How about the
we'll,
Brattle?
we'll it's a possibility. If they'd be open to it, it's a possibility. Sure.
Yeah,
You know,
great. Well, Sheldon, thank you very much for joining me for this time, and best of luck on your book. It's already
it's my
taken
pleasure to
off.
be here.
It's great to have you, and you've been on. I think you were last on maybe in 1993, maybe.
Maybe
I'm not.
so.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that
Yeah.
up. It might
I
appear
ran
on the
across a
screen.
couple of pictures from that taping, as a matter of fact.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll show them right here. You just gonna send them to me. Are they digital?
Yeah. 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 I'll see if I can find them and send them over to you.
All right. Sheldon, any final words on the book that you want people to know before they read it?
No, just that they can get it on Amazon. It's been published through Amazon. That's where it's available. You can also get a copy if you want an autograph copy. You can get one directly from me at necw.tv/events. Just go to our website, and there's a way to order it right there. Whether you get it from Amazon or whether you get an autograph copy from me, I hope you get it. I hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed writing it. It was one of the most joyful, creative experiences I've ever had. A very different creative experience, and what I mean by that is, when you produce theater or when you promote wrestling, you may be the person behind it, but the people who execute it are people other than you,
Hmm.
and all you can really do is stand at the back and watch. But when you write a book, it's you,
Right.
and so it was a pleasure to write, and I'm so happy that the response has been so warm towards it, and I hope you get it, and I hope you enjoy it if you're watching this.
Well, hopefully you'll be writing more fiction then if you enjoyed it this much.
People say you got to write a sequel to this. You got
Yeah.
to you got to continue the story. So that might very well be in the cards.
There's 1,000 stories, more than 1,000 stories of
Oh man,
wrestlers
there's
in
an
this business.
infinitude of stories in wrestling.
Yes,
That's why
exactly.
it's so rich to
Yeah.
write about, because there are so many stories that you could write about.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sheldon Goldberg, author of The Last Fall. Okay, now we can extend that if you have any more that you'd like me to talk about, that you'd like
Oh,
me
we
to
can just
ask
chit
you.
chat. If we can
Yeah,
keep going and chit chat, and if there's
yeah.
anything in the chit chat that you'd like to use, that's great.
Okay. All right. I there's 10 minutes on this thing here.
Okay, yeah,
Actually, you just gave me an idea for a new segment called Chit Chat, Wrestling Talk Chit Chat.
yeah, all
You
right.
just gave me an idea for that. So The reason
I'm so happy that you enjoyed the book.
I did, I really did, because I don't know, it just it brought back a lot of memories and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking of a promoter. In case I show this, I'm not going to mention who the promoter is and what
Yeah.
state. The last fall, the place where old wrestlers go to retire, or to stay in the business, reminds me of a certain promoter in a certain New England state that
Mm-hmm.
I remember we drove our van up there to record it, and it was a mess. The audience was, it looked like a bunch of hillbillies, you know,
Oh boy.
and the promotion itself was in bad shape, and that's what it made me think of
Mm.
when I saw what everybody thought of it in the book itself, you know. So I'll have
Yeah.
to ask you off camera if you think you know who I mean.
Okay. Fair enough.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So now, wait, where's my note? Here it is. You mentioned the, hold on. Um, Power Station USA. Is that the Superstation TBS?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Equivalent to, yeah. Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
close. Pretty close.
Yeah.
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 That, so have you done any signings for this?
Yeah. I did a book launch party. Held
I
it in West
missed that.
Roxbury. Yeah. Yeah.
How did I miss
Yeah.
that? I
Yeah.
was
No,
upset when I saw that.
yeah, no, we had about, 40 or so people there. It was great,
Ah,
a combination of friends and fans and, people that bought tickets and people that I invited and all that. It was great.
I'm always on
Yeah.
Facebook. I don't know how I could have missed that.
Yeah.
Did
Hey,
you
got
advertise
to
it, right?
follow me more closely.
I guess sometimes, people don't pop up in your feed as much, maybe because we used to talk more online and we don't anymore. I think
Yeah,
that might
yeah.
be it. So your stuff doesn't appear. Do you see my
Could
stuff?
very well be. Yeah, the algorithm is a mystery. So,
It really is.
yeah.
I know the algorithm
A
is
number
much.
of people have said to me that when I announced that was doing this book, what a surprise it was that I was going to write fiction, and
Hmm.
it shouldn't be so surprising. But apparently, to some people, it is surprising, and I'm in a way very flattered that people should be surprised. So the lesson in that is you should never be surprised in anything I do. So
Or
there you
anything
go.
anybody does, really,
Right?
because
Exactly. Exactly.
people tend to pigeonhole other people
Yeah.
in what they know them for. They know you for being a promoter. They know you
Right.
from historian materials,
Mm-hmm.
interviews that documentarians have done with you. So,
Mm-hmm.
they can't picture it. We all stereotype everybody, I think, you know.
Having historical knowledge was an important aspect of writing this book because you can't manipulate history unless you know what that history is.
Yeah.
So that was a key thing that helped me in the writing of the book is I knew what to stretch and what not to stretch. So and I think it's fun how I'll listen to people say, "Oh, I one guy." I can't say that because it'll reveal too much of the plot. But one guy just kept spouting off, "Oh, this guy is this guy, and this guy is that guy, and this guy is that." No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. They may seem like that person. They may
Yeah.
in some minor part be based on that, but they're not that person. So read the book with an open mind.
As I
Is what I'm trying
progressed
to say.
as I progressed through the book, I saw the places and the people more as themselves, and I stopped trying to think who was supposed
Yeah.
to be who. And that's how I
Right.
think people should enjoy the book,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
especially Ralphie. I love Ralphie,
Mm-hmm.
but
My if I were to cast the movie
yeah,
of this book, Ralphie would be Charlie Martin Smith. Remember Charlie Martin Smith?
I do not.
He was Toad in American Graffiti.
Okay,
Like the
okay,
nerdy guy with the coat with the
yeah,
glasses and the yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that would have been Ralphie Ginsburg right there.
huh.
Or somebody that looked like that would be Ralphie Ginsburg.
Actually, he kind of reminded me of the brother, the traitorous brother in the Godfather.
Ah,
You know who I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Fredo.
yeah, Fredo,
Yeah.
yeah, John
I would
Cazale, yeah.
that actor would be perfect in my view for
Uh-huh.
Ralphie,
Uh-huh. Okay.
you
Okay.
know. So yeah, and huh.
It
You're
was so much fun to write this book.
yeah.
It really was.
Ch-
Once I got into it, I started writing a totally different story.
Really.
Yeah, I started writing a totally different wrestling oriented story, and I got this idea, and I saw the whole thing, and I said I'm going to put this one aside and come back to it later, but I'm going to go do this right now
Uh-huh.
because I can see the whole thing. And
Huh.
boom, it just like poured out of me. It was crazy. Three
Wh-
weeks, boom.
what was the other plot? The other story? Did you
The
save
other
it?
plot, yeah, I did save it, and I intend to finish it at some point. And that book is called A Mad Dog's Tale,
Oh,
Tale. Yeah,
interesting.
about a wrestler, Michael Mad Dog Morrison,
Huh.
who comes from a very well-to-do family in Marblehead,
Ah,
Massachusetts, of all places.
nice.
And he has a very successful amateur wrestling career and gets recruited into pro wrestling, much to the chagrin of his family. And I mean, he knows in the end he's going to end up in the family business someplace somehow because his family is a family of overachievers, people who are usually successful.
Right.
But his experiences in pro wrestling are very profound, and they influenced his inevitable outcome in some ways, and that's all I'll say about it.
Hey, I hope you finish that one. That sounds interesting
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You might have a
I had gotten
series.
into it about 100 or so pages, and
Huh.
so I had done significant work on it before I put it aside for the time being.
So what
Yeah,
made you put it aside?
this idea for the last fall came to me partly in a dream, and I said I got to write this
Um,
book. This book has to be written. It's gonna, and it just, like I say, it just poured right out of me. It's
well,
crazy.
less than a minute, this thing is going to cut out by itself.
Yep,
What training did you have to do this? So you self-taught?
self-taught,
Uh-huh. You didn't take any courses or
college
anything?
English.
College English. Well, you had some.
I had a playwriting course in
Uh,
college. That
uh-huh.
was a good a good foundation for doing this
All right.
because there's a lot of dialogue. It's very cinematically written
Yeah.
in that respect.
Well, take care, Sheldon. It's going to cut out now.
You too, my friend.
And
Thank you so much.
thank you for being on. It's great. It'll be a great show.
Always a pleasure. Anytime.
Till next time, I'm Leonard Kaplan saying so long from Wrestling Talk and stay in the ring.